Solo Leveling by Chu Gong. Chapter 8 Part 2 The Demon's Castle. They arrived at the meeting place. Police had blocked off the vicinity because the gate had materialized close to a residential area and major road. There were barely any spectators. Gates handled by the association tended to have first appeared a few days ago, so they were often volatile situations. Besides, nobody would be able to see any actual fights no matter how close they got to the gate anyway. Occasionally, the police would have to chase away some mischievous kids. Clack. The taxi door closed. Jin Woo and Chi Yul, who had exited said taxi, were stopped by the police while heading to where the other hunters were gathered. "May I see your ID, please?" Chi Yul took out his wallet and presented his license. "Chi Yul Song, C rank. This is my colleague Jin Woo Sung." The police compared Chi Yul to his photograph, returned his license, then let them through. "Thank you, sir. Please keep up the good work." Chi Yul lightly greeted the policeman before he continued on his way. Jin Woo followed him. An employee of the association was waiting for them in front of the gate. It was a young lady with round glasses. She spotted them and headed toward them. "Hunter Chi Yul Song." "Huh? And Hunter Jin Woo Song? How did you know about this raid? You didn't answer your phone." Chi Yul responded for Jin Woo. "He was with me when you called." "Oh, really? I thought Hunter Sung was avoiding my call again," she said jokingly. Jin Woo used to actually do that in the past. There had been times when he would turn off his phone after sustaining heavy injuries because he was too scared to go back into another dungeon. However, regulations stated that if he ignored the association's call 3 times, he could be kicked out, so he dragged himself back there eventually. He smiled bitterly as he remembered the past. "Oh, other hunters are already here. Please go ahead and mingle." She pointed to where hunters were gathered. She'd said, "Hunters," but there were only 2 others there. Since that big incident, attendance had been low. On the way here, Chi Yul had explained to Jin Woo that on top of many hunters getting killed, several had also decided to retire after sustaining injuries. And one of them was Juhi. Jin Woo looked around, but he didn't see Juhi. As he and Chi Yul approached, the other 2 hunters avoided making eye contact as if they were embarrassed. Jin Woo's eyes narrowed. They should be, to be honest. The 2 were Kim Sang-shik, who'd hightailed it out of the dungeon to save himself, and the hunter who'd tossed Jin Woo aside to escape the room. They were clearly uncomfortable having to face Jin Woo. Son. Kim tried belatedly to say hello to Jin Woo after an uncomfortable silence, but he turned away after being met with Jin Woo's cold stare. He kept his mouth shut tight and, after observing the group, quietly left his place. He cocked his head in confusion as he peeked at Jin Woo from a distance. Is that really the same Jin Woo Sung? His eyes looked like some kind of beast, I tell you. It gave him chills, and he got goosebumps on his arms as well. Jin Woo reigned in his murderous glare. Fortunately, Kim was more perceptive than Jinho. After making eye contact with Jin Woo once, he decided to keep his distance. Jin Woo hoped that he continued doing that. "Sung!" Chi Yul stood beside Jin Woo, smiling as he spotted something. "There she is!" Jin Woo turned his head in the direction Chi Yul was looking, even before he completely turned around. "Jin Woo!" Something soft collided with him. "Juhi?" As Jin Woo stood flustered, she looked him over, fighting back tears. "Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere? Oh, your leg! How did your leg?" Her eyes grew wide as she looked back and forth between Jin Woo's face and leg. Chi Yul had been just as surprised as she was, but her reaction was more overt. "Right. My leg. That's a..." Jin-woo was about to make up a story when, "Oh, that's hot! So hot!" Both Jin-woo and Ju-hee looked toward the voice. Some man was catcalling at them from a distance. He wore a blue prisoner's outfit. Are they shooting a movie nearby? As Jin-woo looked on curiously, a man in a suit emerged from the passenger side of a van. He chided the one in the prisoner's outfit. "Shut up!" The prisoner looked away, acting like he hadn't done anything wrong. But when the man in the suit turned back to the van, he took the opportunity to wink at Ju-hee. Jin-woo frowned. Soon, 2 more people came out of the van. Both of them were male as well. Strangely, all of them wore the same prisoner's uniform and had on handcuffs. The man in the suit led the 3 men in the prisoner's outfits toward the association employee. She greeted him happily. "You're finally here. My apologies. There was traffic." The man in the suit started signing the paperwork she handed him. While he was doing that, she addressed all the hunters. "These probational prisoners will join you in today's raid." The hunters were stunned. Kim stepped forward. "Probational prisoners? Are you telling us to do a raid with criminals?" Hunters convicted of a crime have a choice. They can fully serve their prison term, or they can decrease their jail time by cooperating with the association. Most of them chose to shorten their sentences, and those were called probational prisoners. The employee of the association kept bowing in apology. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, but this area is very low on hunters. The association has already said there isn't much choice currently. But you needn't worry, since a member of the surveillance team will also go with you." Kim eyed the man in the suit suspiciously. "A member of the surveillance team, too?" "Yes. The probational prisoners are all C rank, and the hunter from the surveillance team is B rank, so you needn't worry." Kim nodded. There was a theory that 10 C-rank hunters would be needed to defeat 1 B-rank hunter. There was no reason to refuse a B-rank hunter who would both help them and keep an eye on the prisoners. A B-rank hunter and 3 C-rank hunters. Jin-woo felt like something was off as he looked at the hunter from the surveillance team and the probational prisoners. Something isn't right. He sensed hostility from them. Was this a result of his perception stat? Or was he worrying too much about nothing? In any case, an inexplicable uneasiness came over Jin-woo. He whispered to Ju-hee, "You shouldn't come on this raid." She looked up at him. "What about you?" He responded to her question with his own. "And if I go, then I'm going too." Her expression made it clear she would follow him no matter what. "I know it's because she's worried about me, but..." Jin-woo knew from experience how stubborn Ju-hee could be when she had that particular expression. "I guess it'll be okay as long as I stick with her." He defeated Dong-suk's squad, which had 5 C-rank hunters, all by himself. Jin-woo nodded. "Okay then." The surveillance team members stood in front of the hunters after finishing up the paperwork. "As I believe you've already been told, I'm Tae-sik Kong from the surveillance team. I'll keep a close eye on the prisoners, so please do not worry about them." Tae-sik waved the prisoners over. They trudged to him and put their hands out. He swiftly unlocked their handcuffs with practiced fluidity. "Damn, that was uncomfortable. We're not slaves. How can they drag us around like this?" The freed prisoners complained while rubbing their wrists. Tae-sik ignored them and turned to the hunters. "Who is going to lead the way?" Chi-yul, who had always been the de facto leader, raised his hand halfway. Tae-sik nodded. "Understood." Chi-yul entered the gate first, and the others followed him one by one. "Shall we go?" Jin-woo also went in with Ju-hee. She gingerly held onto his sleeve, perhaps because she was still traumatized from the last incident. The majority of magic beasts in this dungeon were goblins. Goblins were classified as the weakest among humanoid magic beasts. The level of the dungeon wasn't high. Keek. Kek. Jean Wu had always found it easy to deal with these creepy little creatures, even before the system. He fought them cautiously. Skreek. Keek. Chiyul and Juhi were awestruck by the way Jean Wu was fighting better than they'd ever expected. Wow! Even though Jean Wu was trying to hold back most of his combat power, there was still a clear difference. Juhi approached him. Have you been working out? I've been running every day. Running? She looked doubtful, but at least he wasn't lying. More importantly, my experience isn't going up at all. Skreek. Experience will not increase because the enemy's level is too low. Kayak. Experience will not increase because the enemy's level is too low. Jean Wu looked disappointed. The message about the goblin's level being too low kept repeating over and over. What's the point? On top of that, the essence stones from the goblins were of the lowest quality. Jean Wu looked around. The C-rank prisoners seemed hyped up because of their temporary freedom, and were tearing apart the little beasts with their weapons. Keek. Skreek. Keek. It was hard to tell which of them were the beasts, and which were the humans. Looks like I don't need to work that hard. He couldn't increase his experience here. Neither could he make much money. At the same time, he had another thought. If it's gonna be like this all the time, isn't it better to leave the association? Most of the work from the association was attacking D or E rank gates. If he couldn't level up with D or E rank raids, though, there was no reason for him to participate. And I'll have enough to pay for my mother's hospital bills from now on. He could leave the association at any time. This was why it was good to have money. Jean Wu had more options open to him. The party had ventured farther inside the dungeon while he was lost in thought. Huh? Now there were 3 different forks in the path before them. Tasik offered his suggestion to Chiyul. How about we split up here, since the level of the dungeon is lower than we thought? Let's do that, Chiyul agreed. Jean Wu closed his eyes and focused on his other senses. Which way is the boss? Jean Wu was hoping the boss, at least, would give him some experience. Soon, he started sensing the life force of every living thing in the dungeon. He opened his eyes and spoke to Chiyul. Mr. Song, let's go to the left one. Sure. Jean Wu, Chiyul, and Ji took the left path, Tasik and the prisoners took the right, and the last 2 hunters took the middle. Jinwu's heart was racing with excitement. The boss is at the end of this tunnel. He couldn't say it was particularly strong, but the energy coming from the end of the corridor was unique and different from that of the other goblins. He wanted to get to the boss as soon as possible, but goblins sprang out at them every few steps. Keek, keek. Skreek, keek. Keek. There were about 10 this time. One with a wooden club, another one with a wooden sword, and yet another with a long wooden stick with a sharp stone point attached to the end. They'd done their best to arm themselves, but they didn't feel threatening at all. Aren't these bastards sick of attacking us? Jinwu made a face. He considered goblins to be pesky, as they attacked in groups but weren't worth very much. There are 10 of them. What should we do? Should we regroup with the others and come back? On the other hand, Chiyul and Juhi took them much more seriously. They're only goblins, so we should at least try to fight them ourselves first. Okay. Flames flickered on the tips of Chiyul's fingers, and Juhi was readying her healing magic. Jinwu scratched the back of his head. Now that I think about it, I don't feel nervous at all, even though I'm in a dungeon. Was it because he was much stronger than before? It was slowly starting to sink in how different it felt. Chi-Yul turned to Jin-Woo. "Sung, are you ready?" "Yes, sir." Jin-Woo kept pace with his teammates and steadily eliminated the goblins. In this way, they were focused on tackling the dungeon when a steady stream of shrieking came from out of nowhere. "Aerg! Aak!" It wasn't the goblins. They were definitely human screams. Jin-Woo, Chi-Yul, and Ju-Hee stared at one another. It was quiet for a moment, but then the awful wailing started up again. "Ag!" Chi-Yul's face hardened. "Let's go!" The three of them sped toward the source of the commotion. Jin-Woo could have run faster and gone on ahead, but he paced himself for the safety of the other two. How long had they been running? Ju-Hee spotted someone. "Over there!" It was Tae-Sik Kong from the surveillance team, and he was kneeling, covered in blood. He called out to them. "Be careful! Those bastards might still be here somewhere." After spitting out the words with his last remaining strength, Tae-Sik sank down as if he was in a great deal of pain. "You what?" Ju-Hee couldn't just stand by and watch. "I'll heal you." She figured that, even if there were enemies nearby, she was a B-rank healer. She was pretty quick at tending to others. She thought it'd be better to treat Tae-Sik before the enemies struck again. "Please hang on." Ju-Hee stopped in front of him and stretched out her arms. Dim lights began emanating from her hands. That was when Tae-Sik sprang up and reached for her neck, his hand charged with magic. SWWWP. Someone grabbed his wrist right before his hand could touch Ju-Hee's neck. TMP. "Ah!" Startled, Ju-Hee jerked back and landed on the ground. Whump! Tae-Sik had a look of surprise on his face. "Who blocked my attack at this distance?" It wasn't difficult for a high-rank hunter to get rid of his lower-rank comrades. His only issue was the B-rank female hunter, who was the same level as he was. Luckily, she was a non-combat hunter. She wouldn't be able to protect herself if he hit her with a surprise attack. But his strike had been blocked. His effort to act the part of a responsible hunter had been in vain. Tae-Sik's eyes scanned up the arm, holding on to his wrist. His eyes stopped at Jin-Woo's face. There was malice in those eyes. Tae-Sik scowled. "How dare you, you low-rank trash!" Schwip! Tae-Sik's other fist flew for Jin-Woo's face. But Jin-Woo easily avoided it by turning his head. "What?" Tae-Sik put in all his strength and wrenched his wrist out of Jin-Woo's grasp. "Huh?" This surprised Jin-Woo, as expected of the strength of a high-rank hunter. With both hands now free, Tae-Sik attempted to pummel Jin-Woo, but he moved as fast as Tae-Sik did, blocking all his attacks. Paw-paw-pack. The two of them continued their assault on each other. They were very evenly matched. Chi-Yul took the opportunity to get Ju-Hee away from them. Mr. Song! Ju-Hee was speechless from shock. But Chi-Yul was even more shocked than she was. How is this possible? It was a fight at an unbelievable speed, too fast for the naked eye to follow. It might have been expected from the B-rank hunter, but Jin-Woo was no longer the person Chi-Yul once knew. He was going head-to-head with a B-ranker. I'm C-rank, but I can hardly follow their moves. His hunch had been right. Jin-Woo wasn't that same E-ranker who'd been weak but had good hunches. After exchanging hundreds of blows in a short amount of time, the two fighters separated to catch their breath. Jin-Woo glared at Tae-Sik. "The blood on your clothes? That's not yours, is it?" Tae-Sik shook out his wrists as he replied, "That's right. This is the blood of those bastards. But forget that. I had no idea I'd encounter a hunter like you in a place like this." He was truly amazed by Jin-Woo. He hadn't heard of a high-rank hunter working with the bottom-tier trash in the association. This isn't good. Tasik had thought today would be the perfect time to enact his plan. He hadn't anticipated such an unexpected complication. His curiosity got the best of him.
Who are you? What's your rank?
Jinwoo summoned Kasaka's venom fang and gripped it tightly as he replied.
Jinwoo-sung. E rank.